Hey, what's up guys? Nick Quintero here, and today I'm going to show you a quick walkthrough of a customer requested redesign. All right, let's go. So my friends at Morgan Mercantile do a lot of really awesome projects out in Fort Worth, Texas. They have a storefront and they do a lot of custom printing and embroidery and lots of really cool projects for customers. So they reach out to me every once in a while when they need some backup on some design work. They had this project to recreate this vintage shirt for the Tarantula Tiki Lounge out in Fort Worth. So they asked me if I could help recreate this design and make it work with the Tarantula Tiki Lounge branding. So this is what I did. I took this vintage shirt design that they sent me and started by tracing out some of the elements that I was going to reuse the way they are. I used a lot of my pen tool tricks that I've showed in the past to create these lines very fast, although this footage is a little sped up. You can see I used a lot of different techniques, from using the pencil tool, the pen tool, and creating straight lines and curving them with the quick curve tool. I went into the shapes that I knew for sure were going to stay the same, like the trees and this bird. They specifically asked to include these elements. I started by tracing all this line work, even though I knew some of it was going to change as I moved forward. I just traced over every element that I could see, even though some of it was kind of blurry, so I did make some choices and just draw things where I felt like they should be. For this type here, I just used the brush script font because I could tell that it was the same. And I also used it to kind of map out where I wanted the word tarantula to be. You can see that the original one is like a hand-drawn piece of type, but I wanted a little bit of reference, so I used this font to help just map out where each letter would go. So then I took the blob brush tool and I just kind of started drawing out letters based on the reference in the background, as well as the font layout that I put together. This was me just freehanding these letters and creating elements and moving them around and putting them together where I thought they should go. I used the pencil tool to reshape some of these paths to get more less rounded corners and more of like a rounded square shape. I just wanted it to be as close to the original as possible without having all of these letters available. You can see I went over some of these things a couple times just to make sure they were perfect. I put the text back in place and I moved on to the color story. So here I just used the eyedropper to make a few swatches, and on this blue you can see that I'm using a halftone instead of creating a dark blue and a light blue. So I colored in some of my elements and I started kind of copying the style of the background by creating this 3D shaded layer on this text. I did all of the connections by hand just because it seemed easier than trying to do something like the blend tool or something. It also helped me smooth out any areas that I didn't think were quite right as I went. I added these highlights that you can kind of see in the background. I just kind of, played with it until it looked right. Skewed the text and moved on to this little swoosh. I colored these in just without using outlines like I did that bird because I felt like this was just going to help me get to the end result easier. I kind of wish I would have done this on the bird, but I had already done the line work, so there was no point in going back. So I just drew in these leaf shapes and flower shapes and things, just kind of eyeballing what would be printed, what colors would drop to the t-shirt color, etc. I didn't really pay too much attention to the details that would fall under other elements, just so that I could create, these shapes quickly. All right, onto the bird. You can see I'm getting rid of some of these outlines, so I really should have just drawn them like I did the flowers originally, but sometimes you don't figure those things out until you are already deep into the design. But these elements are so small, it was easy to kind of just quickly draw in some shapes and redo things. Now I'm smoothing out some of these outlines and getting rid of those curves where things meet at corners. You've probably seen me do this in a lot of my designs. And then I can just use these shapes to fill in some colors when I'm done here. So using the paint bucket tool, it was really easy to come in and create these flat colors. And I had to close some of these paths by hand by drawing them in. I brought all of those flowers up above the shirt, and that was done. Now I had to do these triangles, and they asked me to put in some different silhouette shapes for these silhouette shapes. This is going to be a weird video with no editing of my audio, so all of my mistakes will still be in here. Just doing some touch up on the flowers and some more of these tree shapes. I waited until after I had the triangles, so I didn't draw unnecessary parts of the trees. You can see that the zigzag shapes in these trees really made it like the most time consuming of the whole design, but I think they're really cool elements, so I'm glad I did them all by hand and individually. Here I am making the halftone for the light blue sections, and basically it's only going to print half of the blue color, so it's going to look lighter, and that's essentially what a halftone is. But it's really good for screen printing because it helps you save on color counts. So this is the Tarantula Tiki Lounge logo. They wanted that one in the middle triangle. And they sent me some reference for some drinks that they wanted the silhouettes added into the other triangles. I created these with a mix of the pen tool, the pencil tool, and the shape builder tool. So they also asked for some logo individual pieces that they could use on other merch, which you'll see at the end actually. So yeah, that's a quick walkthrough of how I did it. I sped everything up to about 600% just so that it wouldn't take an hour and a half to see all of the elements and how I did every little thing. And I think it's super cool. They ended up using this on t-shirts as well as printing some cool towels and other merchandise. I think a lot of it is gone now. It was just like a quick one-off kind of merch release that they did, but I didn't really get to see any of it in person since this was in the middle of our quarantine times and the bar is in Fort Worth, which is a little bit far from where I live. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed checking out this one. I know it's a little bit different as it wasn't a tutorial, but I thought it was cool to show some step-by-step of how I do something that's a little bit more complicated and detail-oriented like this design. If you guys are interested in learning how to do some more stuff like this, most of my videos are Photoshop and Illustrator tutorials, so please consider subscribing to my channel so you can get more content like that. If you don't want to miss out on any of my videos, make sure to hit that little bell notification down there so you can be notified every time I release a new video. You could also hit that little like button down there. That helps me out tremendously. It lets YouTube know that this is a good video and that it should show it to other people who would get value from it. If you guys want to see some of my day-to-day work, you can check me out on Instagram at NickQ, also on my TikTok at NickQ83. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for checking it out. And like always, we'll catch you on the next one. Later.